So really the benefit comes in when you're looking at leads is knowing whether or not that lead is a viable lead, right? If they have intent to purchase. There's lots of leads out there that um, they might click the button to say that they're a lead, depending on the use case. But ultimately, maybe they're just looking, maybe they're tire kicking, it just depends on the industry, right? So really you have to look at what the lead has been doing, really, if you can.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders podcast with Harry Sardinas. Interviews with world's most influential entrepreneurs that share tips about how to grow your business exponentially. Charismatic speaking, leadership, branding, marketing strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.
What are the 5 steps to make the real estate leads more valuable? Today we have Ian with us, which is the founder of GoHouse AI. And he has over 20 years of experience across real estate sales, lead generation, and agency side growth. So tell us, Ian, what are the 5 steps to get warm leads?
Sure. So really the benefit comes in when you're looking at leads is knowing whether or not that lead is a viable lead, right? If they have intent to purchase. There's lots of leads out there that they might click the button to say that they're a lead, depending on the use case. But ultimately, maybe they're just looking, maybe they're tire kicking, it just depends on the industry, right? So really you have to look at what the lead has been doing, really, if you can, before they ever even submit their information, and then after they've submitted their information before you reach out to them. So that way you have an understanding of how you're going to reach out to them, right? Because many people will just reach out generically and they'll say, "Hey, I saw you were on my website. How can I help you?" And the person that's on that became that lead is it's a person, right? So we want them to get the best consumer experience possible. So the first thing you do is you should be looking at their activity to try and match your response to really what their activity has been. Then you need to make sure that you are matching their cadence, right? So if you get someone, you've called them back now, you've discussed the specific topic that they're looking for. In this particular case, let's say real estate, they're looking in a specific area. You don't want to just hammer them with the questions, well, what's your budget? When are you looking to move? Like, that's the old school mentality. You want to use open-ended questions and really try to get to the bottom of why they're reaching out to you today. Like, what was it about that house that made you want to reach out to me? Or what was it about that other product that made you wanted to reach out today? And so those are the first couple of steps, right? So you want to kind of research what you're looking at, what the lead has been looking at. Then you want to make sure that you're using that information and research to ultimately tailor your discussion. You want to definitely be using some open-ended curiosity type questions to really feel out what that person's looking for, because just because they reached out on a specific home doesn't necessarily mean it lines up with what they're really looking for, right? What they're really looking for might be, a great neighborhood with nice houses, or with good schools, or that allows pets, or that has lots of fun stuff that's nearby, activities, outdoor activities, whatever it is. So you really want to kind of use your opportunity to get to know that person as quick as possible, without really hammering them on those questions. And so that's the second step. So thirdly, you definitely want to try and, if you can, get them to really agree on when you guys can get together on another appointment, right? So you want to solidify a time frame, whether it's to show them the property, whether it's to discuss looking at other properties, things like that. So you're not, again, trying to have like a gigantic conversation with this person that you've just met. A lot of times that's off-putting for that person. They're just calling about something specific. And that I would say was a good framework for really kind of getting to know the leads that are coming in. Um, but before that, you really want to be looking at where the leads are coming from and hone in on which ones are ultimately converting the best for you. So you have to really be keeping track of all of this, um, not just like hoping and wishing and thinking that one source is going to do better for you than others. You really have to pin down, well, I'm getting more leads from Facebook, so what can I do on Facebook to reach out to more people? What kind of lead magnet can I build to generate that interest where someone's looking at my specific neighborhood? I've kind of moved around a little bit with the different touches here, but really, you know, having systems in place so that you can take that research and easily um, input it into something and have it give you maybe a molded script that you can utilize with your input and insight is a huge benefit. So GoHouse actually does a lot of that on the back end, but people can do things manually these days with different types of services like Claude, ChatGPT, but it does take a lot of manual input. Um, so knowing where your leads come from, going ahead and speaking to that lead like they're a real person, not just like a lead, a piece of paper. Uh, Using open-ended questions to find out more information about what's really driving that person to become a lead for you, and then ultimately trying to get them to commit to another time when you could solidify a longer conversation, both for yourself and for them, shows professionalism on your part as an agent or as a person who's working in a specific industry. Um, and then ultimately you want to stay on top of communication with that person. So the last step I would say would be making sure that you have systems in place that you can um, keep reaching out to that prospect, that lead, and making sure that you're staying top of mind, because ultimately buying cycles change for people. And if you're not right there at the right moment when the person's ready to say, yeah, let's set up an appointment and get looking at these houses, or let's go ahead and click that button on the website and sell me that particular product, then you're not the guy that's ultimately going to sell it to them, right? You're not the website, you're not the person, you're not the realtor, however it works. So those are pretty good steps that I would say, making sure that you touch all of those to really be successful.
So tell us your story, how you come up with this idea to create this company, GoHouse.ai, and what you guys specialize.
Yeah, so actually, GoHouse is really my partner's um, brainchild, if you will. And it started out, his name is Dimitri, and Dimitri, several years ago, was actually looking for a house himself. And this was before we knew each other. Otherwise, I would have just helped him find one. Um, and so what he found was that there was no easy way to search for homes. There was a bunch of websites, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, individual agents' websites. And so, but when he would go on any of those, he couldn't say, well, I like a neighborhood that has a pool, and I also want it to be pet friendly, but I also need good schools. Like, you can maybe check some of those boxes depending on the website that you're on, but there was no real way for you to have your search respond in that way, right? Well, this is the house that matches the most, and this is the house that matches the least. Um, they're all going to come up with, let's say, a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom with a pool in a neighborhood that you particularly look for, but none of them are really going to give you that customized response. So he actually set off to try and make a better way to search for homes. And over the course of a couple of years of working on it, a lot of feedback from different directions, and then eventually connecting with me through our kids, actually. And we took the idea and we went to the Real Deal in Miami, and it's a convention for real estate professionals, industry type topics, developers. So there's a lot of people there who sell websites, CRMs, software to support buildings and both infrastructure and with construction and so on and so forth, right? Real estate companies and the like. And so we took the idea that we had, which was actually building this really great intent engine, which you could use through a portal, and we decided that why are we going to try and compete with these other big companies that are like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, which have huge budgets, huge footprints in the market, and huge user bases. And so we're going to be this startup that tries to compete with all those. So we said, how do we take what we've built, this way to figure out what people really want, and turn it into something that's more useful for the entire real estate industry, and actually industries beyond real estate as well now. And so we said, let's make it modular. Let's take the process that we've built and make it so that we can watch any website that a realtor has, or any other sources like social media and things like that where leads are generated from. And let's figure out how to watch it all, right? Let's figure out how to watch everything that's happening on that website, how many properties they're looking at, what pictures they're looking at, did they share it, did they talk to the chat bot about, is it friendly neighborhood, or is it close by to the train, or whatever it might be. Did they do a mortgage calculator search? And using all of the data, which we were, before tracking and internalizing, and then ultimately figuring out what it meant, right? The intent behind those different actions. We created this invisible layer. It's GoHouse, right? And so now you've got a website, you're a realtor, you're very active, you send people to your own website because you don't want them going to Zillow, Realtor.com, and all the other ones. And our system watches all of that traffic that I just mentioned, and it shows the realtor ultimately in the existing software that they already use, no replacement of their tech stack whatsoever, what intent people have that they're currently exhibiting, right? So someone's on the website, they're doing lots of different activities. They might look like somebody that just is searching for a home, but sometimes people just search around because they're bored. They're not necessarily looking with intent, versus someone who comes, looks at specific properties maybe multiple times, or in a specific neighborhood several times, and then asks very specific things to the chatbot about the different features of either the home or the neighborhood or the surrounding areas, and looks at a mortgage calculator, starts figuring out how much things are going to cost. All of those types of activities lend themselves to being someone who's actively searching and pursuing real estate, piece of property in this case. And so without an agent really spending a lot of time looking at a bunch of statistics, they're not really going to know whether or not a lead that came to their website today is someone who is showing intent, or if someone who's just showing intent because they want to get paid to put a blog article on their website, or some other kind of other ancillary feature, right? Also, if someone has been in your database for a while, they'd come to your website a while back, and our system's watching all of their activity. Maybe they've resurfaced on your site to start looking at properties again, and without you knowing that they've done these different activities that would say, hey, I'm showing intent that I would potentially be looking for real estate now, you might be looking at the new leads that came today and saying, I got to call these people, as opposed to this other lead who had resurfaced and really started spiking in those intent signals. And so GoHouse, again, morphing from a customer facing portal to the intent engine that can watch the portals and really drive the outreach for the realtor. That's kind of where we decided we wanted to be, that in that sweet spot where we could take someone's existing tech stack and just make it so much better by using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and acting like a data analyst on their behalf, and then flagging to that realtor, hey, you should reach out to this person today because they're definitely looking. They've ran the mortgage numbers. They've talked to the chatbot. All the things that might be by showing that they're having intent. In addition to that, because a lot of realtors are very busy, what we decided was that we would take those actions one step further now and can reach out on behalf of the agent via text message, via email, but in a way that's fully customized to the agent, to the activity that the buyers are going through. So that way they're not just getting a generic response. I can't tell you how many times my CRM would have sent out something because it was set up to do automations, right? They all have some automations. And it's like, hey, Ian, I saw you were on my website today. How can I help you? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that message went out. I just talked to this guy a half an hour ago, and now he's going to think I look like a fool because I'm sending him this message that makes no sense in rhythm and rhyme with my conversation. So it's super important. Automations are fantastic, but you don't want them embarrassing you because they're not actually appropriate for what you're trying to go for. So that's
One
kind of where
question
we
is,
came
yeah.
from. Yeah.
So one question, Ian, who provide the leads?
Right. So the leads all come down to the individual agents, teams, and brokerages that are currently doing outbound, that are currently working on getting inbound leads, right? So often teams or brokerages or individual agents are doing things online to generate their own leads, whether they know they're doing it or not, right? They
They
might
might
be
doing
putting social media
advertising,
posts. Mhm.
things like this, right?
Well, definitely advertising, right? That's like the obvious one, but people don't always think of other channels of generating leads as advertising. They, when you're on Facebook and you're doing a live feed from a home, or you're videotaping a home, or videotaping, how old am I? When you're, capturing some video of a home and then posting it on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and all these other places, like, you're not technically paying for marketing, but you're actively marketing yourself. You're actively trying to generate leads, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, right? Everyone in real estate, whether they know it or not, their number one job in real estate is lead generation, right? If you have no leads, you have no business. So whether a realtor understands that, or a sales associate or a broker understands that or not is different, but ultimately that should be their number one focus, right? Actively doing lead generation through social media or organic blog articles and things like that. The goal is lead generation. You want leads to come to you so that you can work with them, right? And then when they do, you don't want to sound like you're unprofessional when you follow up with them. So the more information you have about that lead and their activity before you reach out to them, and timing is better, right? And that's where we come in. We pay attention to all that, and then ultimately can give the agent a much more professional response, which again, as I kind of touched on a little bit ago, if you have the time and energy, you can take data, you can set up your own agent in one of those AI systems, and you can feed it information manually, and you can get back usable, artifacts that you can use in marketing, in blog posts, in newsletters, and things like that. But ultimately, if you're not doing it, then you're spending a lot more time, or you're not necessarily doing it as customized and as comfortable for the prospect as possible. And so that's super important these days, right?
So in order to monitor the intent, right? Once you have the details of the leads, you have the name, email address, phone number, right? And now that person is browsing in Facebook, is browsing in let's say Redfin, Zillow, in sometimes the website of the agent, and it's asking questions. It's gonna be asking questions in chatbot of those engines, right?
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be clicking in different sections of those websites, right? And depend of that result, clearly will provide the data that this lead is high intent, right? Is but also probably maybe was the best time to call them, but it doesn't matter how much intention they have. If we call them, you call them at the wrong time, or they don't pick up the phone, then that's also is not going to work. So any idea how to improve on this also, not only in the detection based on the
Sure.
footprint,
Well, a lot of times you won't
but
necessarily
how to
have
approach it.
a lot of the times you won't necessarily have that information from the big companies like Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin, right? If someone's on their website, it's hard to judge what activities they've been doing because they're huge companies and they don't like to share, right? They don't like to share. But when it's on your website or your social media, um, then it comes down to being able to see, well, they were active on my site during these times, right? They were active in the evening from 5 to 7, so they must be looking after they get home from work. Or maybe they were active from 9 to 11 because they don't do a whole lot at work. And that just seems to be, when they're looking at these different things. So ultimately having that data and someone to analyze it and feed you information on how to use it is super important. Same thing with social media. If they're looking or interacting with your posts during a certain time frame, you're going to want to capitalize on that and say, okay, well, this person was um, uh, clicking, checking yes, they loved my post at 7 o'clock at night. It's different from them doing it at like 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So, oftentimes people doom scroll all night long, but they don't actually have good intentions necessarily. Like they don't necessarily focus on what they're really trying to do throughout the day when it's super late at night. So that might not be as important of someone um, interacting with your social versus them interacting during normal operating hours, right? So yeah, so again,
Is it gonna
being
work
able
for
to
the small realtor, or only have to be for big companies that receive a large amount of
uh,
leads on the website?
well, so okay, so if we're talking about GoHouse, it
Mhm.
benefits the most when you have the most leads. But again, I mean, whether you have a few leads or a lot of leads, it can help you because ultimately, a big factor in responding to leads is how quickly you can get back to them. So if you're using like automated features to be able to look at what they were doing and then reach out to them in a customized manner like GoHouse, that will help you whether you have a couple of leads or a ton of leads. Obviously, the more leads you have, the more help the system is going to be able to offer you. More likely, the bigger the team that you have, and the more consistent you want your outreach to be. So that's helpful for bigger numbers of leads, bigger teams, brokerages, and things like that. But any agent who is generating traffic should be looking at something to help them with this, whether they are manually interacting with their own AI, Claude or ChatGPT or a fancy Codex or any of those. um, they're gonna they're gonna lose out to someone who is, if they're not, right. So if an agent is not taking advantage of AI today, whether it's through an automated system like ours or through their own manual interactions, they're going to ultimately get outpaced by those that are. And that's the important part. Okay. A big,
Yeah, and
and
then
actually,
the automated system, it will put kind of a pixel or something in the website, right?
so our system does. Yeah. We have a way of putting a small piece of code on a website, like even through a header or whatever. So it's almost invisible. And so that's what we use to track all of the information. Um, and then ultimately we we do it while the user is both anonymous, and then after registration we merge all of the information so it's all one record. So we do know what people are doing before they register, but we don't necessarily interact with them until after they've registered. But yes, we
Register,
use
what that means, Ian? What that means, register? After they ask a question or what?
Uh, Normally most realtor websites at some point ask the prospect or lead to register.
I
Like
understand.
maybe, yeah, maybe it's after a couple of listings so that they're kind of um, um, ingrained in what they're doing and they don't want to look away. And so they'll fill in their name and their email address or their name, phone number, email address, or whatever. So that's what we call registration. Now, um, once that person has registered with that particular site, we are tracking them exclusively for that agent, team, or brokerage, right? So if they then go to a different site, we're not necessarily tracking them down on those other sites. We're watching the activity that's happening on those agents' websites, okay? And that's important for a couple reasons because if we have two agents that are using the system, we're not sharing any information between them. Everything is exclusive to that particular agent, team, or brokerage, and that's important because you work hard to generate those leads. Most of the time, they're not going to leave your website and go to another website as long as your website is functional, user friendly. It has the listings that they want to look for. If it's old and clunky, or if it doesn't have all of the listings, or they think that they can find more listings elsewhere, that's not so great. And we try to advise the customers that are currently working with us on ways to improve their website, but it's just because right now we're a good small team and we're able to give solid feedback to the teams and brokerages that we're working with. But ultimately, you do want something that is aesthetically pleasing, has the listings available that people want, because people, when they're searching, they really want to know that they've got everything. If they're gonna be like, well, this wasn't on Zillow or this was on Zillow, how come I found something else on Realtor.com that wasn't here? How come I found something on Redfin that wasn't here? That will like put them off and it will make them not necessarily want to continue using your site. So ultimately, you do want your site to be robust, have the listings and access to anything that those people would want. A chatbot is super helpful now because um, with the invention, or with AI being so much more prevalent these days, the bots can now have intelligent conversations with them and not just like very limited questioning. And um, so that's another feature we can help with if people need it. But uh, if somebody already has a chatbot on their site, we can take, again, if we can get access to the back end, we can ingest all of that data that people are chatting with, and use that to show whether or not the person is spiking an intent or not. Um, there are other systems out there, most of them all in one, that have, I would say, similar features to what we're offering. Um, but you have to replace your tech stack to go with those companies, whether it's more or less expensive, doesn't matter. It's just now you got to replace your website, you got to replace your CRM, you got to, replace all this technology, which comes with a learning curve. If you've got a big team, now you have trainings and all of that. And in particular, GoHouse does not need any of that. We bolt into any website, any CRM. We, again, watch what's happening on the website and then um, feed what you should be doing back into your CRM. So where you're already looking at your leads and keeping track of them and maybe even interacting with them, we're we're putting all that information in there. So if our system then takes it one step further and does outreach on your behalf, now after you finish that listing appointment or that showing appointment that you were just on, instead of having to run back and chase down the phone number and call the lead, or click on the text message and call the lead, now you can look in your CRM and see, oh, GoHouse sent them a text message. What do I do to follow up to that? Or did they ask for an appointment? Am I getting now an appointment on my calendar? Things like that. So
Then, Ian, what is the business model? How
so
how yeah, how it works?
yeah, so actually, our business model is technically twofold. Um, we have two separate channels that our company is working towards right now. We're specifically um, like Go House to agent, team, or brokerage, and it's a monthly subscription. And ultimately, again, working with any CRM or website, whatever tech stack they've got. There's some add-ons for additional things.
A monthly subscription per user, or how it works?
No, per website. So if it's one team with 20 people on it, it's just one website subscription. If they have multiple websites that we need to integrate with, then that's different. That becomes let's say an add-on. Also, the automated outreach is technically like a next step up add-on or a next subscription level. And so that's kind of it, right? So we have our basic system, which tells your CRM what we're recommending that you do, with the agent then taking over at that point and making the outreach on a manual basis. And then the next step up is we then take over some of that outreach with emails, text message, and initial email, text message, and AI phone calls, and we can do the outreach on your behalf, the initial outreach, and feed all that information into your CRM, at which point your CRM should be able to take over with you and it working together. Second to that, our business model is on the commercial side, on the enterprise side. We are working on getting our systems integrated with a variety of the providers that are already out there that do have all-in-one solutions, but that don't have these features to be able to offer to their customers. So I'm not going to name any names at the moment, but there are several different companies that we're working towards agreements with. And so if you are a user who already is working with one of those companies, then it's going to be up to the company how they offer it, but most likely it'll be a white labeled solution, so they won't even realize it's GoHouse. The agent won't, but they will probably be able to have like a paid add-on to what they're already doing, which will go directly to the company that they're already with, and we will invisibly be servicing them on the back end. So
fantastic. So if someone is in love with this conversation, Ian, how people can find you, how this process works?
Sure. So the easiest way to find us or more information about us is you can just go to GoHouse.ai. That's our website. You can reach me direct. My phone number is out there publicly since I am a real estate agent, 954-639-3928. You can always call me. Just try not to call me too late. I do have family. And we're happy to set up a demo for any agents, teams, or brokerages that are currently looking to make their lead generation more efficient, that wants to see a higher return on their investment and to stop wasting time on leads that are never going to buy from you, no matter how many times you call them. And so, we're absolutely happy to help. Yeah, I mean, I would say go check out the website or call me direct, and I'm happy to set up a demo. So
excellent. Thank you so much, Ian. And for all of you following the podcast, Entrepreneurs and Leaders, see you in our next episode. How brave entrepreneur like
thanks,
Ian
Harry.
made the world a better place. Bye for now.
Appreciate you, Harry.
Follow us for more on charismatic speaking, leadership, exponential business growth, branding, marketing, strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.